meeting of the Custer County Board of County Commissioners to order on Tuesday, April the 18th, 2017, at 9 o'clock. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Katnick.
Here.
Commissioner Hood. Commissioner Prince.
Here.
Attorney Clint Smith.
Present.
And clerk to the board Kelly Camper present.
Thank you. At this time, do we have any amendments to the agenda?
We do.
Okay.
I'd like to discuss the telephone lines at the new community center. The Wetmore Community Center telephone lines.
Okay. Any other additions?
I'm good.
I have none. Do I hear the motion to approve the agenda as amended? So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Introduction of the audience, please. We'll start with,
I'm Jeff Luthier. I'm with the U.S. Forest Service San Carlos Ranger District out of West Cliff Works.
And I'm John Bompson. I work for the Forest Service out of Canyon City.
I'm Paul Crispy, and I'm the San Carlos District Ranger.
I'm Ed Smith with Solid Waste Compliance Assurance Unit for the state of Colorado.
Jackie Bubis for the Sentinel.
Joe Shepland, State of Colorado.
Joe Parisi, State of Colorado.
Jared Henderson, State of Colorado. Joe Petrick, State of Colorado.
Bruce Barr, Wetmore.
John Spar, Wetmore.
Dennis Sprecher, Recycling, Custer County.
Nancy Cruz, Wetmore.
D. West.
Wetmore. Hayward, Wetmore. And Davenport, Wetmore.
okay. Thank you all very much. Gosh, we've got so many state people here. I hope we haven't got any warrants or anything. I thought CBI only conducted raids, but welcome, folks. All right, at this time, do we have any minutes for approval?
We do.
Okay.
From the 31st and the 5th.
I've reviewed the minutes for March 31st. I think they're very comprehensive and well done. Thank you for a good job. I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Okay.
I'll second that motion as stated.
Moved and seconded, we accept the minutes from March 31st. I've also reviewed them and agree. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. April the 5th minutes.
I'll say the same thing. The minutes were comprehensive and good. I didn't see any adjustments to them. I compliment job well done, and I'd like to move that we approve the minutes for April 5th.
I'll second the motion as stated.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes of April the 5th. Do we have any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now we'll move into our public comment period. Does anyone in the audience have some public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Ann Hayward, and I live in Wetmore. And I had sent an email to the county commissioners as well as Sheriff Wireley about the traffic issues on State Highway at approximately mile marker 20 and a half. This is a straightaway with a passing zone, and it's becoming more and more difficult for us that live in that stretch to get in and out of our driveways safely. I suggested some easy fixes, one being put up a sign that says caution driveways. Another suggestion maybe would be putting one of those flashing your speed is signs. And then to the extreme of double striping that area so it's no longer a passing zone. I did hear back from Sheriff Wireley, and I think he did too, that unfortunately the Sheriff's Department and Custer County really doesn't have any jurisdiction over the state highway as far as putting signs up or double striping the highway. All he can do is patrol it, which he is doing to some extent and issuing some citations for speeding, but his manpower is limited. He did touch base with his contacts highway patrol. And he was basically told that these suggestions probably wouldn't be put in place until we had a fatality. He also suggested that I have the county commissioners work their contacts to see if maybe we could get some of these suggestions put in place. So I am asking you and putting it on record that I would like you to do whatever you could to help make this stretch of highway a little safer for
I would like to ask, did you contact the CDOT?
No, I did.
Well,
I did talk to an officer with the state patrol.
Okay.
We did have an accident in that area. Could have been a very
well,
serious head-on, and he's working with the CDOT engineers.
I've got some good news for you.
Okay,
I talked to CDOT on Thursday or Friday last week. Told him what the situation was. The engineer I talked to in Pueblo, and about 10 minutes later, he called me back and he said, we're going to close that. We're going to double stripe it
oh, good.
sometime within the next 2 weeks. I also asked that they consider putting up signage advising there were driveways there.
Okay, thank you.
But somebody had, I would like to take credit for it, but I really can't because somebody had already gotten to them and they were already looking at it when I talked to them. So,
Well, I think it was a combination of me, because I had made several phone calls, plus the officer, the state patrol officer, who responded to the accident, I think started the ball rolling too.
I commend you for your efforts and your actions, and if something isn't done, they said we'll be up there within a couple of weeks and get that painted and closed.
Okay, great.
So if not, please let me know.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very
And
much.
for the rest of you, I don't very often have good news when I have an audience item. This was kind of fun, and thank you, ma'am, I appreciate it. Any other audience participation? There's something you wanted to add?
No, I was just gonna say that I did call CDOT based on the email that we got. They told me basically the same thing you said, that they were looking into it, they will have a solution in the next few weeks. Yeah, I called also based on your email that you sent to Shannon.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll move into the commissioner items. Commissioner.
Well, it's been a very busy time. I've been spending a lot of time down at the community center down here. We have some water issues that there's some water seeping into the basement of the building. If anybody's looked at it, you'll notice there's a giant hole that was dug. Actually, there's two holes that are dug, but one's for the
Grease trap.
grease trap, thank you. One's for the grease trap and the other is for mitigation of the water. The building is about at water level, and water's been seeping in and it's working its way up. We're in the process of contracting with a company that will put a seal on the wall. Hi, Dale. Put a seal on the wall, and also we're going to bury a sump pump underneath the ground, so as the water slowly accumulates, it'll be pumped out. We have piping that goes out into the creek. We'll tie into that. That's already there. We're going to tie into that, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that this is going to mitigate our water seepage problem. I looked into, as promised, for the AEDs, the defibrillators. You can buy them anywhere from about $800 to whatever price you want to pay. The best ones that I could find that are commercial, chargeable and inspectable and upgradable run in the $1,500 range. We are in agreement that that is something that is absolutely a mandatory item for safety, and that will be part of the project when it's said and done. We had a meeting. It was actually a workshop on dark skies. Dark Skies is an international organization that recommends having lighting fixtures pointing downward as opposed to laterally or upwards. The purpose is to preserve the beauty of the skies. This was a workshop and only a workshop. No decisions were made, just discussions. It is of minimal cost to individuals in that none of the fixtures that are dark skies compliant will be paid for by the individual's dark skies organization. If you own a home and put up a fixture, dark skies will pay for it. However, if we become a dark skies community, and the county we're talking about, that would entail an ordinance or regulation that says that any new construction, the lighting, outdoor lighting fixtures must be dark sky compatible. The world is moving towards LEDs anyway. We're getting away from incandescent lights. LEDs shoot downwards, so it's probably going to happen whether we approve it or not. There are only 11 communities in the entire world that are dark skies compatible. By the way, Westcliff and Silver Cliff are both dark sky towns. If the county becomes a dark sky community, it's a trade-off like everything else when there's a regulation. The trade-off is there are some people who will feel, and rightfully so, that some of your rights are taken away. I mean, how dare you tell me what kind of light I put out by my barn outside? On the other hand, the trade-off would be, is this enough of an incentive to bring tourists to Custer County to view our dark skies? Many of you know that at the Bluff, the end of Main Street in Westcliff, there is a observatory called the Smoky Jack Observatory. It's a wonderful observatory used very often because of Westcliff being dark skies. The view of the dark skies is just outstanding. So the thought was, since we're, and this is just discussion items we're having now, that to become a dark sky compatible county would enhance the draw for tourism. The three of us always talk about how can we help bring more money into the county. More money we have in, the better the roads, and you know all that stuff. But this is almost no impact. We're not building any between reducing your personal right to put up any light you want at any time versus what's best for the community. So I just want to give you kind of a quick overview on where that is, what we have. Other than that, I'm just going to go to my normal committee. We are within a stone's throw of finishing our project across the street at the Wetmore Community Center. It is by far, without a doubt, the finest building in Custer County, bar none. I commend the folks of Wetmore who have put in their own labor and toils to make it as wonderful as it is. And I'm looking forward to having a grand opening in a month from now, approximately. We'll get the details to you. Everybody's invited.
It's on the,
Okay, go ahead.
you want okay. Would just like to say that I've been spending numerous hours over the last 2 weeks with our HR/finance director, Donna Hobby. We have been reviewing job descriptions, trying to bring those up to date. We've also been reviewing policy in our employee manual. Last week we met with CTSI manager, Dennis Hunt. We spent 6 hours with him reviewing our policies, and the commissioners will be having a work session with him this Thursday. Also spent time with our custodian, Dave Post, going through the courthouse building, went through every department, looking at what Dave's assignment has been with regards to cleaning the facility and the annex and the weigh station. And I will be coming back to the board with a recommendation of some repairs that I see would be necessary, along with pricing. You know, obviously the buildings are being assessed, but there are some fixes that would really help Dave especially be able to do his job. Just an example, in the annex, that's going to get on his schedule, which it hasn't been, to clean. But the issue is there are no deep sinks, utility sinks for him. The one that's in the courthouse isn't even functioning for him. So the man can't really do his job without his tools. The other thing is I looked at what he's using to clean. He doesn't have a buffer, he doesn't have a shampooer. Guess when I was in the clerk's office, we kind of determined that the rugs haven't even been shampooed in over 6 years. So I will be coming back with a recommendation of equipment that's needed, and especially we want to keep on board with our Wetmore building. We want to keep all those rooms, because you've got wood, you've got new tile put down, you've got carpet. So we're going to need pieces of equipment in both locations, Wetmore and up there. And I'm glad that I went through the building to see that. I handed out, in the annex, there was a request from the VSO for us to inspect possible issues of mold and mildew. And I had Donna call CTSI, and their recommendation was to have our public health nurse and us go through it first with their recommendation, and if we found it, tried to address it. If we couldn't find it, then there are companies that you can actually hire to go through that process. But I'm going to say it's not just in the annex, it is in the basement of our courthouse. So we'll be addressing that too. Also, the county commissioners on the 8th were part of our health fair, and I'd like to say that it was really nice to see constituents that you don't see for a while come through and utilize the service that the county and all of the businesses I want to thank for helping to put that on. I think it was, I haven't heard statistics yet. I guess we'll hear that from Beth soon, but we also had our new public health nurse that we just hired volunteering. I know she was a phlebotomist during that time, so it was nice to see her partake in that. On the 11th, we had a tourism meeting, and we are in the process. We have an RFP out trying to get somebody to upgrade the county's tourism website and maintain it. So hopefully we're going to have some people responding to that. Also, there between May 17th and the 19th, there's a huge tourism summit, and most of our board is going to be attending that, and hopefully they'll be bringing back some new ideas that may help our county. Also attended the SCED meeting last week, and pretty much they just went through an audit. Their auditor, their accountant was there, and we went through their audit process. The only other big news there is that the building that SCED is located in has been occupied by what's called the company, the Small Business Association, and that company is dissolving. So to be continued with what small business loans or how we're going to operate those in that district. So that's pretty much where I am.
Okay. You know, there's times, folks, I feel like a father of a bunch of teenagers. I want some money, and I want some money. You can have my allowance. So I say that somewhat jokingly, but this shows you, I think, folks, the issues that we're trying to pull back together as county commissioners. We have a lot of buildings that need things, and we're going to have to scratch and scramble, and we're going to fix them. We had, in addition to what they've already mentioned, on the last Tuesday, went to Denver with Cindy Howard to a fire recovery meeting. We had Fremont attending by phone. We had Pueblo County President, and Custer was present. Some of the other agencies were there, were the COCO, which is Cooperatives and Coalitions, a group out of the South Platte. We had the Middle Arkansas Wildfire Prevention and Protection, which is a coalition out of the Middle Arkansas. I had a number of other agencies there. We had the Bureau of Rec there.
and some of the state folks. The meeting went along and everybody gave their same old song and dance that those of you down here have heard for several times. I can almost sing it myself. And then I guess I got a little impolite, but I explained to them that I was tired of waiting. I said, we've had this going for 6 months. At the best, we're 2 months away from potential flooding. I said, we've wasted 75% of the lead time we had. I said, we gotta make something happen. And Chief Mears, who's head of emergency operations in Preble County, got up and generously put some more fuel on the fire. And we really made plain, folks, that we're tired of waiting. We have to have something happen. DOLA was there, and the Homeland Security emergency operations folks. That was on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the three of us, plus some elected officials from Westcliff and Silvercliff, are going to development. We're invited to a meeting with Lieutenant Governor Donna Lynn. She come to Westcliff, and we thought a fantastic meeting. A very personal lady. She didn't stand in front of us. She sat down on a chair, and we visited. And it wasn't one of these stiff exchange of informations. We visited. I had asked Cindy to prepare an executive summary of the Junkins fire, including the risks that we're facing, which she did, and I passed that along to her. And to make a long story short, basically she said that she'll see what she can do with the top down. She agreed that we had lost 6 months of time, and that she would, we have, according to our emergency declaration that the governor signed during the Junkins fire, appropriated basically $7 million for Custer County. And I don't know where we got these numbers, but it looks like there may be as much as $2 million available for recovery. And that is specified right in the declaration. So this week we're going to continue to push hard. I want to see some dollars come down the pipe. We need to fix some things that we're not getting done. And I think we made a big step in that direction. Another issue that we got into was the 911 issues. You folks down here haven't had many, I don't think. Well, I guess maybe Fremont was out recently. But we've had numerous interruptions in 911 service in Westcliff. We also have a lot of challenges with the mobile phone companies on coverage, lack of coverage. You pick up calls, you drop them off, these type of things. And that's a serious issue we talked about. There's a tower, cell tower north of Westcliff that's been up for a couple of years now, so it seems. And we can't get the parties that need to play together and hook it up and hang an antenna on it. And she said she would see what she could do to maybe bring those parties together to discuss it. Another fellow that was with her, Tony, I can't remember his last name, but he's with the Governor's Office of Information Technology. And our broadband folks made a presentation, asked some questions about support. And as we were leaving, basically, I'd asked if they maybe consider making Custer County their poster child, not just the western half, but this side over here. And he kind of grabbed onto that idea. So we'll see what happens. I thought it was a very productive meeting. And then when we got done, they were going back to Denver. So I asked him, I said, do you have just a few minutes? And she said, Lieutenant Governor Lynn said, well, yes, what do you want? And I said, would you stop in Wetmore on your way back? So this was about probably 6:30, 7 o'clock. So I drove down here, and Jay was with me, and they will come down, and we drove through Wetmore. We stopped a couple of places, and we stopped over here at the where the old cafe used to be, and she looked at the issues that we had, and then they went on to Denver. So I thought in terms of an opportunity, I thought it was one that certainly was, I think was beneficial to us. So, and I haven't talked with Cindy Howard. She went to had a conference call on Friday regarding funding. I've been almost afraid to talk to her to see if we are the ugly ducklings or not, but we are going to continue. And Paul, some of this, I don't know if any of that would be other than private lands or not, but we're concerned I am very concerned about what we looked at runoff. As a scientist, I've got a real question in terms of what the soils look like now. We've had a couple feet of snow up there, and I've not seen a lot of water come down the creek. And I'm wondering if we haven't maybe had a little better infiltration of water because it was a snowpack than have been a rainstorm. Do you have any, I'll put you on the spot, do you guys got any feel for anything like that?
Well, we certainly were happy to see that the moisture we got came in the way of snow. It's able to percolate a little bit better. It's still, you still have to deal with the effects of the fire, meaning that those soils have created that hardened layer, but at least it's not all coming at one big flash. And some of that is no doubt ending up and going down the creek. But I think if you have a choice, you want to get it in slow snow, wet snow, rather than
I would say we've had probably, and I'm just guessing, but I'd say we have probably less than 2% come down the creek.
yeah.
Some of you folks here in Wetmore, I come by several times, but I never saw the creek getting very high. It behaved itself. Okay, that's all I have. I apologize for the long report, but we've been kind of busy. Let's move on now, if we may, to the attorney. Well, do you have any questions first, of any of us? Okay. Attorney Smith.
I'm going to use this just for a very brief period of time to elaborate on what Commissioner Prince was saying about what's been called the Dark Skies Ordinance, which is really not the correct terminology. Westcliff and Silvercliff, I'm talking now because I'm part of the Dark Skies organization. Westcliff and Silvercliff were designated as dark sky communities. What Dark Skies is interested in doing is expanding, not for the entire county, but primarily for the Wet Mountain Valley, to get a designation as a dark sky reserve. There are only 11 reserves in the entire world. There are none in the United States, so Dark Skies is hoping to become the first reserve for the Wet Mountain Valley to preserve the dark skies in that area. It would not actually include this area, the Wetmore area. It would be confined to the western side of the Wet Mountains. And it's not an ordinance. What they're looking to do is to modify the planning resolution. And this is only because it's a requirement from Dark Skies International in order to get this designation. But we're not, I just want to emphasize that Dark Skies, it would not be forcing anybody to change out lights that already have lights. It would just affect any new lighting that was going to be put in the new construction. People would have to follow certain standards. And the main thing is that Dark Skies will pay for anybody that has inefficient lighting. They would pay to switch out those fixtures, and the savings is phenomenal. If somebody switches from one of the mercury vapor lights or the other kinds of lights that they use now on the ranches in the valley to dark sky compliant LED lighting, it's a savings of 85%. So it's really economically, it makes sense. The lighting is just as good. Some of the ranchers are already on board and are in the process of switching out their lighting, but we're not trying to force this on anybody at all. And the only reason that they were seeking some action by the Board of County Commissioners is because of the requirement that there be some sort of a regulation for the area affected concerning the lighting. I just wanted to add that so people understood what's going on. But if there are, as Jay said, there are going to be more meetings and discussions and get a lot of input from the public, which is what happened at the meeting last Friday. And I guess see where things are going on this.
I'd just like to add, I thought that Jim did a really nice presentation, and I thought the audience was very interactive.
I thought so, and we had a Dark Skies board meeting yesterday. We discussed it at length, and there were some good issues brought up. Jim's in the process, Jim Bradburn, the president of Dark Skies, getting answers to those questions for the next public meeting. And it's a process, and we don't want to push this on anybody. But frankly, we're in sort of a unique situation. The other reserves in the world are areas where there's already light pollution, and it's intended to eventually reduce that light pollution. Custer County, the valley, Wet Mountain Valley, is already essentially a dark sky compliant valley. The lighting is so good, I mean, the darkness is so good there that, you know, it'd almost be a shoo-in. This is sort of a formality of having some kind of a regulation on the books, but I can't imagine that there'd ever be any need to enforce anything, because it only would apply to future construction, that people would have to follow what sort of lighting they need to put up.
It's interesting, we look at the development, you folks see it down here. A while back, I guess it was during the Junkins fire, we were going up on the hill and I had to stop for the fire chief to take a phone call. And I used to ride that road twice a day in the school bus as a kid. And there were no lights visual from that point. I counted 23 sets of lights from that one particular point on the Rosita Road. So it's not high density, but it is growing. And as we look forward down the road, I think this is something we have to protect the interest of the people that are using the lights now and make it where it's friendly. I also appreciate the possibilities of the dark skies. The best dark sky time, I think, is in the winter. Is that a fair statement?
It is, when the air is cold, it's much better as far as seeing what's up.
In the winter is when we don't have many people coming to town. So potentially that could maybe offer us a little shoulder that we don't have at present time. Okay, anything else? No.
I had asked Clint to come up with a resolution with regards to managing departments for the commissioners. So I know we have to post that on the agenda, so I'm just hoping that by the end of the month we can have a copy of that to review.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's go in. Does anyone have a need for an executive session today?
I do not.
Okay, I will hold that in abeyance in case something comes up that we have to, but I don't anticipate an executive session. Moving to old and new business, and I would like to invite our folks from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. I keep forgetting that E on the end of it. So who would like to join us up here, or the presentation or whatever? Sure.
Can I speak from back here?
If you're comfortable.
Sure.
Rusty, you want to come get you a seat? Our landfill manager is back here.
I'm pretty good right here, I think, Bob.
Now, this is teamwork.
Close to the door.
This is teamwork. Yeah, he's in the doorway because he thinks we're trapped. Please, sir, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for having us. I know we've tried to get on your agenda a couple times. One was during the fire, and one, I think we had some weather problems getting down here, so I appreciate you accommodating us. We're trying to get around Colorado and talk to all the communities and counties that have small landfills, and our definition of small landfill is any landfill that receives less than 20 tons a day on average, and I think Custer County is fairly far below that number. I'm happy to, the reason that we're trying to get around to all these communities is because we really have a lot of compliance problems in a lot of these small communities with small landfills. I'm happy to report that that's not the case in Custer County. I think you all run a pretty decent facility. I know we've spoken to you in the past several times before I became the manager of the solid waste program about groundwater monitoring wells, and I know you all were about ready to drill a well, which we appreciated very much. We asked you to hold off on that, and I have some good news, I think, to report on that front, in that maybe now you won't have to pay for it. Maybe we're gonna pay for it.
Hey!
So let me get to that in a minute. I wanted to start off by bringing to your attention a document that we had prepared last year by a contractor. It's called the Integrated Solid Waste and Materials Management Plan. It's a statewide document. It's meant to be a resource for us as the health department, but also for you as owners and operators of landfills. There's a lot of really great information in that report. It's posted on our website, so you could have access to it from there. It's a lengthy document, and I know you probably don't have a lot of time to read that, but I would point you to two parts of that document that I think are important. One is just the executive summary. It gives a good overview of the document. And then chapter 3 specifically talks a lot about landfilling and landfill operations, and one of the really important pieces of information in that document is that there's a lot of cost information included in that. That's really important for a lot of the communities that are not in compliance, given that you are. It's not going to affect you so much because you've already got the right staffing, you've already got the right equipment, you already know what to do with that equipment. So I don't know that there's going to be a lot of news in there for you, but for a lot of the communities with small landfills in Colorado, there's just a lot of upgrades that they need to do, and that's going to be very costly. And I know you all the time struggle with funding for these kind of things. So when we go to a lot of these communities and ask them to reroute money to their landfill, that's not a pleasant conversation very often. Did you have a question?
Yes, so you mentioned that this report is on your website. Could you give us that website address, please? Or maybe not.
We can email it to you.
Yeah, we'll email it to you.
I appreciate it.
For sure, yeah.
That's one of the questions. Go ahead.
So anyway, it's a good document, it's a good resource. It's going to be something that we are doing a lot as a result of in terms of our program implementation around the state. It's really a two-half document. The first half of the document talks about landfilling and waste disposal operations. The second half of the document talks a lot about waste diversion and recycling. That's not something that necessarily is something I'm asking you to look at, but to the extent that you are interested in that, and I noticed there was somebody in the audience with recycling, so that's just a good resource for you to use in terms of waste diversion. The other thing that I wanted to talk about just briefly is, well, before I do that, let me introduce the people that I brought, because we brought a team and they're each important and we brought them for a reason. So Ed Smith is the supervisor of our inspectors. Joe Petrick, sitting in the next row back, is an inspector, and in fact he is your inspector. So that's one of the reasons we wanted both of them to come. Jerry Henderson is the supervisor of the permitting unit, and Jill Parisi, sitting right next to me, is your permitter. So that's why we brought this team with us, so that, and we'll be available after the meeting, so if you want to talk to us, feel free to ask us questions or get anything straight that you want to get from us. So let me go into the second thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is where I think the good news is coming. We had asked the legislature at the beginning of the session for $1.25 million, which we were going to then add another $250,000 to from our solid waste money, for a $1.5 million total to go around to be spent by us helping small landfills comply. Because there are a lot of compliance issues and they can be expensive. So what we're going to try to do, so anyway, we got that put into the long bill. It has survived the process to date. I don't know if you've been monitoring the legislature, but both houses now have approved the long bill. They're in conference committee. I guess there are some heated discussions about certain aspects of the long bill, but I don't think the $1.25 million that we asked for is under that negotiation. I think it's in the. In fact, they actually increased it to 1.3 something million. I can't remember exactly the number that's in there. It's in the long bill. I expect it at this point to be finalized. And so what we're going to do is do a statewide initiative with just the small landfills in Colorado to either put in groundwater monitoring wells if those landfills want to continue operating, and I'm assuming that you probably do want to continue operating. Then for those communities that want to close their landfills, we're going to try to help them at least defray some of the cost of closing their landfills. So that would still be that would be an option for you as well if that's the direction you wanted to go. I'm assuming that's not, but that is a decision we're asking many of these communities to make, particularly if they're in a bad compliance situation. Since you've got things going pretty well, I'm assuming that you want to just keep it going. So we're not looking for you to consider closure unless you really want to. So with that, that's really all we wanted to do. Is there anything else that I'm forgetting that we wanted to talk about? So yeah, we're really just here to make ourselves available, give you that good news. I think what we're going to do in terms of implementing that money, assuming that we get the money through the long bill, is we're gonna get a statewide contract put in place to drill as many monitoring wells as we need to around those 20 landfills. Those that want to close, we'll probably put those under a different contract. State contracting is slow and painful. I doubt we're going to have money available to spend until probably the end of this calendar year, heading into next year. It is 2-year money, so we don't have to spend it right away and rush ourselves through it. We can spend it over the next 2 years. So assuming that all falls into place, the long bill is passed with the money in it, we'll look to try to get a contract in place and then and get back with you in terms of the numbers of wells that we'd like to drill. We know they're deep, they're going to be expensive at your landfill, but I think we're going to be able to put in at least one, probably more than one well at your facility.
I would like to make a statement at this time, if I may, and I think I speak for my colleagues. Would you consider this as our first application for funding for the landfill well? And we'll follow up with appropriate documentation.
Sure.
Thank you. Well, a lot of these folks, it's when you get in line and how far down the line you go. But the point I'm making is that I think, Rusty, what's your thoughts on the well out there? If they'll pay for it?
Well, I just have a question that our existing landfill has probably got 7 years of life left in the designated landfill area. And you know, if you put a well or two there, whatever you decide to do, then if we do an expansion, then what would happen? Because we'll need wells there too. We'll need gas probes, groundwater monitoring wells. I mean, that's a huge expense for an expansion. And for the existing landfill with just 7 years left, I mean, you know.
I guess one thing we could do is, you know, kind of try to understand your plans on where you're planning the expansion area to be, and if there's a chance to locate a well that serves both purposes, you know, the existing and the expansion, and you know, we can certainly consider those flexibilities. But I think we'd have to have some discussions with you as to what you're planning on the expansion area.
Right, so if we put a well in now that's down gradient from the existing landfill, and then we expand it up gradient from the landfill that it is right now, so that well would still work.
Right.
For the expansion.
In an ideal scenario, though, I'm sure you
I see. Okay.
Yeah, just to be clear too, on your question.
I'm jerking it right just a little bit.
I know. It's not going to be pass-through money. I think we're going to try to get some economies of scale across the whole state so that we've got one consultant, one drilling contractor, and they're just going to go from site to site to site and do it.
So we can get a hole in the ground.
Yes, exactly.
The second one that I had, and my colleagues, I don't think had a chance to, I forgot to bring this up to them, but I reviewed that report fairly closely. And it looked to me like there was a certain contingent of it that was trying to promote regional landfills. Is that right?
Well, let me be careful about that. I think that the contractor that wrote the document for us believes, and I think we share the belief, that there is an economy of scale that can be gleaned by entering into regional facilities. I think a lot of times the cost of running these small landfills tends to be disproportionately high to the volume of waste that they receive, whereas if you can get a bigger centralized facility, you can achieve some economy. We're not advocating that, and we know that that's not necessarily a popular thing in many rural parts of the state. I don't really know why that is, but it certainly has been voiced to us that people don't want really to go to a regional approach. That's okay with us. We're not advocating that one way or the other. We think it has some economic advantages, but we're not necessarily touting that as something that everybody has to consider.
Last year, because of some sound fiscal management of our people at the landfill, the volume that we handled, the recycling, it only cost us $18,000 as a county to run that landfill for a year. So we look at economies of scale, I think we're pretty damn close to reaching an economy of where we are in our limited operations. So that's a concern I have. The second concern I have, one of the points was mentioned, maybe a regional landfill at Penrose. We come out of Westcliff, we're hauling stuff 50 miles to landfill. after a while, that mileage adds up.
Yeah.
It's, another thing that I've seen happen in the San Luis Valley, where you have the regional landfill over on the west side. My commissioner colleagues tell me that they've seen a dramatic increase in wildcat dumping on the eastern side because people won't go to the regional fill and won't go to the collection points.
Yeah, that is true. There's sort of an interesting experiment from Colorado's point of view in terms of a regional facility. Well, what we've seen happen in some of the other areas where regional landfills are used, closer up into the metro area where there's big landfills that haul quite some long distances, is that as long as you make the waste drop-off convenient to the citizens, then they're not going to illegally dump. And I think what's happened in parts of the San Luis Valley is that there are transfer stations that are more convenient to most of the citizens. They're not open very often, and they're very limited in terms of the hours that you can take your waste there. And the only alternative is to drive 50 to 70 miles up to the landfill to drop your waste off. And so that's why I think they're starting to get a lot of, and have had a lot of illegal dumping, is just because.
But who will pay to man these alternate dumping stations? Is that a county expense?
Well, one of the models that we've proposed to some of these southeastern Colorado counties is to convert some of these counties have multiple landfills inside one county, and they don't have any more citizens than you do in the whole county, and so it doesn't make necessarily a lot of sense to operate 4 or 5 landfills in one county. So what we're working with them to consider is the idea of closing their landfill but creating a transfer station or a drop-off location that is then hauled, in some of those cases, only 20 miles to a more centralized.
Somebody has to monitor that transfer station, don't they, so you don't get illegal stuff dumped into it?
Sure, but the cost, and this is some of the information that's in the integrated solid waste management plan. The cost that you find in that plan is that the cost of a transfer station are much lower than the cost of operating a landfill. So that's what we're trying to work with these communities to just make them informed so that they can make a better decision on their own in terms of what they want to do. Again, we're not forcing any of them to close either, but we're just trying to give them some economic, what we think are economic alternatives for them to consider.
How will you handle slash and stuff like that in these dumping stations?
Most of those areas of the state don't have a big problem with slash, as you would here in the forested counties.
We got a lot of the state that had a lot of timber.
That's
here
true.
west. The small counties are, as we push and try to get more mitigation for fire control,
Right.
we have to dispose of that somehow.
Right.
And at a landfill, as we could have a burning operation where we can do that. But if we don't have a landfill, that then becomes a separate entity that then has to be maintained somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're not proposing that for you. I think based upon what we know about the operations and the viability of your landfill, it's very good. So I don't.
But I'm just concerned as we look at, Chaffee County and Lake County and Garfield County and Eagle County, and we go on, we have a tremendous amount of beetle kill, we have a tremendous fire potential that is, in some cases, and I'm speaking a little out of turn, the experts are right here in front of me, but I think the fire behavior we saw over there on that South Fork fire, and that beetle kill timber was much different than historically we had seen.
Yeah.
We had a fire up here this last year that ran 13 miles in about 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Well, we have to have mitigation around these homes that are in that wildland interface. And then when we do that, we have to dispose of it somehow. Right. So that's another function that we need to look at. The last question I had, then I'll turn it over to my colleagues. You mentioned closing landfills. Help me out here, Rusty, because you were a kid when we started. But we had a landfill north of Westcliff that we closed. And it's taken us, 20 years, 15 years to finally get that signed off on?
Yeah, we've got it closed up, which is a good thing.
But we started it 15 years ago? The procedure to close?
No, probably more like 8 years.
But it's taken
just because things weren't getting taken care of before that point.
It's taken us a long time to get through that closure. So my request is that perhaps you can streamline some of these closure procedures, kind of checklists and so forth. Because we get down, now we have to survey for the easement for the power company, and we have to have this, we have to have that. Something that makes it less expensive for the rural counties, if we have a facility they want to close, that it doesn't take so much time and so much legal time to do it.
Okay,
That's, no,
good to hear.
have attitude too.
I have a question regarding this same location that you're talking about. In your experience, how much time needs to go by before you could consider that a brownfield? And then I know there are state incentives for companies that want to come in and develop brownfields.
I don't know, Jerry, do you have?
I don't think it's a matter of passage of time. It would just have to be, making sure that the land use is compatible, and we don't really deal with the brownfield grant programs much, so we don't, in the solid waste program, we don't know what those criteria are, but you certainly can develop in proximity to a closed landfill. It just has to be done safely.
So you don't make those recommendations?
Well, we certainly would make recommendations on how to do it safely, but in terms of the grant funding, we don't really have involved in that.
I would like to follow up with you on that.
We can send you the contact for
Sure.
the people in that program.
Yeah.
Thank you.
More? Jay?
Good. I appreciate you coming down.
I've got another area for you while I have you here as a captive audience. I need some guidelines and some documentation and procedures for commercial composting.
We can do that.
We have a situation in West Cliff where we have a meat processing facility that wants to compost, tried to compost, it was a total wreck. I had a phone call yesterday, I'm meeting with him tomorrow to talk about this. I appreciate where he's coming from, but in terms of the mechanics of it, looking at his ideas, well, I've got some animal scraps and some bones, I'll mix some sawdust and it'll work. Having been involved in composting a lot of years ago, there's a whole lot more to it in terms of how you aerate it, how you turn it, how you manage it, and whatever help we can get. And do you do any type of permitting for commercial type? And any of that, so maybe we meet after we finish here, but that's an area right now that has just come up in the last month or 6 weeks. And the gentleman did call me yesterday morning and we're going to talk about it tomorrow. So.
Yeah, it'd be great. We can certainly give you good information on that.
Okay.
I think we might already know about.
Yes.
Well, you know about it, but we know about it, we shut it down, now he's trying to figure out what he's gonna do, and that's where
Okay.
we need to have some ideas or a plan anyway that we can talk about.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions from you folks? Rusty?
I've got a lot of questions for that.
Do you wanna stay around afterwards, or you wanna talk about it?
Yeah.
Can we visit with you folks after? Would that be
Absolutely.
convenient, so we
Yep.
get through some of the other folks on the agenda?
Yep. Sure thing.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience for these folks? Where do you folks here go to Penrose with your trash down here on this end? And do they, or
Yes.
you burn in a barrel, or?
We burn what we can in the barrels, and then what we can't, we have it hauled through our trash haul.
Okay, next item is the Forest Service report, and Paul Crispin, I'd like to welcome you to our meeting, and
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And I apologize. My intent was to be here soon after you took office. And other things have kind of happened. And certainly I wanted to give you a chance to get settled in and before I came. But I appreciate the opportunity. My intent today is just to kind of give a state of the forest, but I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you may have on things that may be of interest on the National Forest in general, or the San Isabel and San Carlos district specifically. And I'll start by probably the most common thing that you've been dealing with. I know Commissioner Katnick has totally wrapped around the axle with it for a while, and that's the Junkins fire. And I'll tell you that the Junkins fire is still an active fire. We were hopeful back when we got a containment line around it in November that we were going to get a heavy, wet winter. And in doing that, to be able to have a soaking effect in those areas where the fire was burning. And unfortunately, we just have not received that. All these snows certainly help to quiet things down, but our sense today is that once the conditions warm up again, once they move into a drier cycle, that we're going to see that fire show itself again. In fact, yesterday we got a smoke report on Rudolph Mountain, and we expect that's going to show itself. We feel really confident, though, that the lines that were put around it and the burnouts and everything that was done during the time that the teams were here is going to be sufficient to prevent it moving anywhere else. If you'll recall, it left a big donut hole in the middle, up that middle hardscrabble drainage, and that's where the unburned fuels are, and that's all that stuff that you saw in late November into December, even into January. It was getting into those areas where there's still unburned fuels, and it would burn through that, and that's what it's doing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The more that fire can move through those unburned fuels, the better condition we have, at least in terms of what's left. But it is an active fire. And we'll deal with it, and certainly you'll know about it. You'll be involved if we are going to bring resources in to continue to conduct suppression activities. So staying with the fire, as you know, as the fire was being suppressed, we initiated our efforts in what we call BEAR, the Burn Emergency Area Response Review, which is just a rapid assessment of the effects of the fire and what can be done on the national forest to lessen the effects of post-fire runoff. And that analysis was sent forward with a request for funding to our regional office and national office. And we did receive about $180,000 to implement the measures that our team identified as being the most effective and most essential parts of what could be done. And those mitigation efforts are primarily having to do with addressing life safety, trying to eliminate or at least lessen the risk exposure to the public and employees that are within the fire perimeter. Specifically, we requested funding to put in 2 gates on County Road 386, and I'm sure you're familiar with it and you've been through it. And those 2 gates are now in place with the help from the county. We greatly appreciate that. It was a huge thing for us to get the county support to put those 2 gates in. The first one was put in February, I believe, and then the second one, because of some issues with our vendor, was not installed until last week. So that one now is in place on the east end, on Bill Donnelly's property on the county road. And the other one had been in place, and now they are both closed and are securing that entranceway. The county has a lock on those gates, and we certainly will communicate and work with you in terms of allowing the access that you're going to need, but we understand the reasons why the county wants to go in there. And then Mr. Donnelly has a lock, so there should only be 3 locks on there: our lock, the county's lock, and Mr. Donnelly's lock. Again, we've been fortunate that we haven't had the big downpour yet, but it's going to come. We've monitored the stream flows as well, and we haven't seen that they've come up significantly. So we still anticipate that when we do get even moderate rain, that we're going to see quite a bit of flow coming out there. So I won't get into all the things that I'm sure you've heard and have seen from other experts in terms of what to expect. But so in addition to the gates, we're trying to make sure that any snags or trees that are on trails, primarily in that Mingus Ranch area, have been cleared. We're going to sign a lot of roads and trails in areas to alert the public to the potential for flooding. I will tell you that the closure that was put in place during the fire activity has been terminated, and that closure basically was a closure of to the whole area. You could not enter it. We shrunk it progressively as it was needed, and then terminated it and replaced it with a closure that just closes the road itself. So you are not allowed to be on the road that we closed with the 2 gates, but you're welcome to go in and hike in any way you can, or get in any other way you can on the rest of the fire. And that's, certainly there's still a lot of hazard, but there's no way that we could even think about managing the closure to keep people out. And we shouldn't. It's public land. It's changed now, and it has different risks, but it is public land, and all those things that folks had gone in the past to do in those areas are certainly open again, whatever that might be, hunting and hiking or whatever.
I assure you, we will probably not be plowing that road again.
Okay, yeah.
I don't quite understand how that happened, but that's fine. But from here forward, and we need to clarify the use of that road. Is that to be used for going from point A to point B with equipment, or do we go around it? We can talk about that later, but we need to have clarification on that so we know where we are.
Sure, and that, I appreciate that, because I am cautioning and kind of having expectations from my employees that there's a real risk to be on that road already. Even without rains, there's a risk on that road. We're seeing large boulders that are coming off those hills that were affected by the fire. We have trees coming down the road, but certainly maybe the greatest is going to be when the rain comes. We expect that road we're going to lose in several locations on the forest, and we'll take a look to see what.
Excuse me, Paul.
Yes, sir.
You say you could walk into there?
Yes, you can go into the fire area. We just do not want to allow people to be on the road, and that makes, I know that probably is silly to say you can't walk on the road, but the advice we were getting from our law enforcement or our attorneys relative to risk exposure made it such that we wrote the closure that way. I suppose you could walk off the road up on the slope there and be okay, but you cannot be on the road or occupying any of those sites along
No,
that.
just getting quick.
Yeah.
People can actually walk in there.
Oh, yes. Yep, you're allowed to go in. So that's the kind of the state of the fire as it exists today. We are working with the county where we can to help and support work on the private land. So we're working with Cindy to see where we can offer our AmeriCorps crew, our young adults that are working for us, doing cleanup days. She has also requested that to make use of our chipper to maybe be able to dispose of some of the material you're going to collect, and we're working to see if we can do that.
That's on private land?
Yes, yeah. So we're looking to do that. We're limited how much we can expend off the national forest, but in the name of being a good neighbor, there should be some things we ought to be able to try to help with. Let me see here.
One thing we need on this topic is some place other than 12 Mile to haul the slash from down here.
Yes. So
we go up over Wixon Divide and over Bigelow Divide, and it's just a long way for these folks to go.
Right. Yes, and that's a good segue to one of the other things I wanted to talk about is we continue with our fire mitigation efforts across the whole district, and we appreciate the county's recognition of and the public support that we got here recently on the burning we were doing over in Alvarado, because it's needed, as you stated earlier, and as you're making a point now. These forests are just heavily overgrown, and it becomes even more difficult to try to figure out what are you going to do with the material once you cut it down. We've opened 2 areas limited for disposal of slash. One has been at the Alvarado campground, and the intent there is just to work with the neighboring homeowners in that area, those in those subdivisions. Tanglewood has not really responded to it. Others, and I don't recall the name of that subdivision right below.
Alpine and the Phantom Ranch.
Yeah, those folks have, and we've been opening what we call the parking area there, right below the trailhead, and allowing folks to come in on a week. We'll set the weekend, and we'll have some in there so that we're not taking trash and other things. And we'll take material, and then during the winter months, that's what we're burning, along with other piles. But we'll burn that, and the county has offered to use the local fire district folks to help, and we appreciate that. So we'll continue with that as long as we can manage it. The other area that we're offering to do that is partly, I believe, in Custer, it could be in Pueblo, but it certainly would be open to Custer residents, is the gravel pit on the 12-mile road. And that one, I don't believe we have had those days yet, but we plan to do that, is use that gravel pit as a community site where we'll take slash, and then in the winter, once we have enough snow, we'll be burning that.
When will you take slash up there?
We'll set the weekend. We'll set those dates and we'll announce it.
So that down here, we're gonna need more than just a weekend to haul stuff up there.
Yeah. What our concern is that we don't just want to open it if we can't staff it, because as unfortunately, folks will haul everything except slash. And then we're dealing with a different issue. And that, if we start doing that, then it prompts us to not open it to the slash. So that's our hope. We're not planning for any other location. We have the same challenges as a county when it comes to trying to figure out where we're going to have slash locations. So, but we'll keep looking for opportunities, certainly. If you have some ideas, I'm willing to entertain what you might be thinking in terms of how we can help communities.
Do you know if there's any BLM land down here we might be able to burn on? Just off the top here, I'm not going to say make a commitment. I don't know of any land that would really work.
I don't, but I would sure encourage you to talk to Ty Webb or Keith Berger and approach them with the same.
But these folks here can't haul it up the 12-mile very well.
Right.
But we'll see what we can do. There's still issues.
Sure. So the other areas I just want to mention quickly where we've been creating our own slash and doing our own burning has been along the 12-mile road at the Boy Scout Ranch just north of Lake Isabel, around Alvarado Campground, which all of you have seen, I'm sure, over in that Tanglewood. And the issue there, the need there is just to continue with that reduction of the density of those forests, and then being able to dispose of those fuels when we have enough snow on the ground. So I know it raised some concern. You folks probably heard it from some residents, but believe me, we have a prescription that sets very clearly the conditions under which we can burn. So it's not a subjective thing. We have to comply with state smoke management requirements. So we got to look for those days when it's a good smoke dispersal day. We got to make sure we have enough snow. We got to make sure we have enough resources. We monitor the winds and all those things. So we've never lost a fire from a pile. But fire is fire.
That's certainly I would never. You haven't here, but they did in New Mexico.
Yes, we haven't, but certainly it's occurred. And I will never guarantee anyone that fire will never escape its containment lines. That's a dangerous thing to do, is to guarantee anything becomes fire. But we take significant precaution to limit that possibility. Yes, ma'am.
I think, is there a way that we can communicate to the citizens of our county when you're going to do that, so that that concern isn't out there? Because
Yes.
we did get a lot of calls.
We alert the county sheriff and the dispatch office before we start burning. We also put public notices in the paper. We are on social media. We post it everywhere we can to let people know we're about to start burning. Not only our piles, but when we burn, when we implement broadcast burning like we do down south of West Cliff in the Black Mountain area or other places. We try to make sure information management is one of our biggest challenges, as you know, nowadays. And we try to make sure that we're doing a good job. If you think we're missing something, please let us know.
Do you have a local Facebook page?
Yes.
You do.
Yeah, Forest Facebook.
I think the one you're referring to is one we recently had, and And that was, as near as I can determine, a breakdown in the sheriff's office. Because
That's what I was
I knew before they lit the fire that they were going to be burning, and we had talked about that, and already notified law enforcement. So someplace was hit.
There's Facebook and Twitter both. But please, if you think we're not covering the right folks, or there's something we're missing, if we got a blind spot, please help us.
Something else, a lot of times they don't know who they're gonna burn
Right.
until a couple days before you can actually burn. I mean,
Yeah,
So
really.
that's hard to put in the papers.
it's hard to get the picture.
Yeah. So let me just close on fire season and move on to on fire issues and move on to other things here in a second by telling you that, we, a month ago, our predictions or what we were seeing were fire were pretty bleak. I mean, it was just horribly dry. The Arkansas Basin, really below Salida, had not gotten a lot of heavy snowpack. Upriver from there, it really is in pretty good shape, but down river it was not. The last 3-4 weeks have improved it a bit, but we, the folks that feel comfortable offering predictions on weather and forecasting fire season, are telling us that it's going to get dry here as we go into May and June, which is our typical fire season. I was talking with Brian Bledsoe last week, our News 5 meteorologist, and he's usually, he probably is one of the meteorologists that comes closest, in my opinion, along with some of our national weather folks, to kind of hitting the mark. And he's thinking that we're going to continue to get these pulses of good moisture, cooling temperatures, and then we'll go into extended dry patterns. So we expect we're going to see fire activity probably into July, and then we'll wait to see if the monsoon pattern set themselves up, and then hopefully get into wet year. But last year on July 10th is when Hayden took off, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, I think I'm not crazy. We've got a 10-inch tree there, and you've determined that moisture is very low. Maybe, but we had some down to 7 or 8% 2 years ago when it was so dry. If we get moisture, how long does it take for the moisture in that tree to increase?
Well, there's a lot of factors that influence
I know
that, of
it
course.
involves the sap flow and everything else, but I'm just thinking, we have 2 inches of rain, well, so what? That tree's still pretty dry.
Yeah, no, it takes a while. So folks are a bit deceived when we're getting a big heavy snowfall or get a good dump of rain, that changes the ignitability, or what's the term that's used, the fact that fuel is going to burn.
Right.
And it takes a while for the ability of those fuels to absorb the moisture and be able to behave differently if a fire is put up against it. So, and we continue to be surprised by fuel moistures. We had a relatively dry fall, obviously, with fires burning the way they were into November. We had a relatively dry winter. We get some local moisture, we get some moisture that seems to be good for shallow-rooted plants, but for deep-rooted plants, it didn't do a lot, and it's not doing a lot now. So those heavy fuels, what we call the 1,000 and larger hour fuels, are still pretty dry, and they're good to burn. We've seen fires run when there's snow on the ground, just because they're just not sucking up the moisture. So anyway, so that's where we're at with fire season. Let me move on to other things I wanted to just hit on. So in addition to driving the fire, 13 miles in 4 hours on that day, October 17th, we had the effects of that wind were pretty devastating on top of the Greenhorn Mountain. We had another significant blowdown of spruce, primary spruce and fir, that created kind of an emergency in itself because we had people in there during hunting season. So we were able to get folks out, help people get out, but we still have a mess up there. We've taken a look at what we can do to be able to salvage a lot of that material. And we're going to potentially use one of the loggers that is still, or is going to be back up there working on one of their sales to at least salvage what is within his purchase area. But all the others, 2 other loggers that were in there had moved out, and they were not interested in coming back just to salvage material. So there's a potential, probably not this year, but into the future, that we're going to be setting up sales to salvage a lot of that blowdown. We're going to work with the public to try to offer as much as we can to the public to take home as firewood, to make it a little bit easier to get in there and clean some of that up. But it just, the effect of it, we're so broad and so large that it's kind of back to where we were in 2011 when we had the last blowdown, which is demoralizing because a lot of the timber sales that we had put in were finally kind of getting ahead of that, and now we're back there.
How many acres would you guess are impacted severely?
You know, we got up when we flew it a bit, and it was hard to kind of map it accurately because much of it came down within areas that have been blown down before. So, you know, we're thinking that was probably in the area of around 10,000 acres total that was affected. There's a couple of places, if you know that road, where it laid out every tree that was in that corridor for probably the length of a football field and then more. I mean, it is all like a St. Helens effect. Everything is on the ground from large diameter trees to small stuff. So, so the other thing I'll say on that is we continue to have sale activity, meaning we're going to continue to sell or provide opportunities to sell a lot of the spruce fir in that area. So in addition to the effects of the blowdown, what is created is habitat for spruce beetle and spruce budworm. And every time we have a blowdown, they're attracted to that. Those trees send out the pheromones that attracts the bugs that then therefore are able to propagate and fly and kill trees. And that's what's happening in much of the greenhorn. It's happening in the sangres. It's happening throughout most of southern Colorado. And that epidemic is so large now that there's nothing that really we can do to stop it. We can slow it down in localities, but we're not going to stop it. When it's all said and done, unless there is another amazing act of nature, most of the spruce fir component in these forests is going to be dead. 80% of what Hayden burned through last year was dead spruce fir. So that phenomena is showing itself. If you go into the sangres, you're going to see that. We're hearing it from folks. What's happening with the forest? What's killing the forest? It's dying. It's an old forest that has been affected by the deliberate removal of fire, and it's grown in a way that it's trying to reset the cycle, trying to reset itself, and it's going to. You know, that's something that we'll continue to see. We're going to continue to see Hayden types of fires, but that's going on with the spruce beetle. So we have, without adding additional timber sales as the result of the blowdown, we have about 3 or 4 more years of potential timber sale areas in the county, in Custer County. And I tell you that because some of that revenue from those sales comes back to the county. Certainly you've got your PILT funding, but some of the revenue generated on national forest, 25%, is coming back to the county. So whether it's from logging sale receipts, grazing fees, or other revenue generating activity, those dollars are coming back to the county. And I don't have figures with me to tell you what those are today, but I certainly can put my hands on those and what's coming specific to Custer County.
Do you have any areas that would have poles?
Yeah, it may not be here on this unit, but if folks want poles for corrals or fences, we usually send them where we have lodge pole, which is a very straight kind of a tree, and we have a lot of that in Salida. We have some on the north end of the district, but we usually send them to Salida. So folks
Salida will have some pole sales this summer, because other than that, Ponderosa Flats is the next one, I think.
Yeah, so if you or someone you know is looking for poles, send them in to Jeff. He'll put them in touch with Lisa, our timber sale person, and they'll find a place to allow them to go in and cut poles.
Is Lisa in Salida then?
Yes, yes. So our sale activity is going to continue. I know it creates issues for traffic on those county roads up there, but the operator is required to blade those roads, to pay attention to the roads. Sometimes we have to remind them and put pressure on them, but we do have a cell administrator that monitors what they're doing. I would always be interested if you're hearing things about road conditions, things of that type. I'll stay on the road thing. You know, every year we, like you, we pursue other funding. Our programs that we get, the appropriated funding that we get from Congress, isn't near enough to fund the work that we need to do relative to primarily trail maintenance, and not even for roads, but especially for trail maintenance. So we pursue other sources of funding, and the state grant program is one that has been very gracious with us. We've been able to acquire funds on an annual basis to the tune of about $80,000-$90,000 a year, and that funding goes right back into trails. Now this is motorized trails because the money for those grants is coming from the license sales for ATVs, motorcycles. So we have that, and Jeff, where are we going to be spending that? Do you know?
So this year we've got a big section of the rainbow. Again, you've seen pieces of the rainbow we've been working on, but there'll be a larger section of the rainbow, hopefully from Gibson Creek trailhead north, that we're working on. We got Gibson Creek to Hermit last year. We've got from Horn Creek south to South Colony done in the past. So those pieces, we're just prioritizing pieces of the rainbow. Then we've done some work in the west too with Cisneros Trail out of Lake Isabel, and we'll continue. And some Second Mace Trail, so we'll have some pieces over there.
We'll also have to be working on the blowdown, because the blowdown did impact some of those motorized trails on top. And so there'll be some effort with that also.
What kind of money are you looking at on timber sales on that blowdown?
We get some appropriated money from Congress. We also are able to use some forest health dollars, and then if we can, we compete for funding that's available. It's kind of held at the Washington office for initiative sorts of projects. I mean,
I was thinking of your timber sales, not clearing the trail, but what kind of money will it cost for, if someone wants to buy some timber, what kind of money would they expect to pay?
Well, it depends, because what we do is we'll go in and determine the amount of volume within a sale area. And we can get very accurate determinations of volume, and then we offer it in a competitive way. So there's a bid process, and of course the government is trying to get the most that it can for that product, and we go through a bid process. But we do establish a minimum value, and if we don't get that, then we don't award it, or we decide to maybe consider selling it at less than that value.
Maybe this isn't the right word, but would you consider a fire sale up there? In other words, you got blowdown timber, you need to get cleaned up, you need to get it out of there. If someone wanted to come in on a commercial basis that had the ability to clean up some of that, there'd be a way that would be to me, it looks like an issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, so certainly there are emergency situations where we can have some discretion in terms of how we dispose of it. But I am bound by my policy, which emanates from law, to try to derive a revenue from the value. And that, it's not a lot, really, and it doesn't necessarily come back to my district when we sell it. In some ways it does, or some programs it does. But we are bound to try to retain some revenue generated from values. But there are situations where if it behooves not necessarily the government, but the condition of the area to be able to make it easier, like what we're trying to do with the public. You still got to get a permit to go up and buy fuel wood. We don't give permits away free in that case, but we're trying to make it easier for folks to go in and get the wood.
I have a commercial lawyer that has expressed a personal interest to me about trying to do something up on
Has
the
he?
hill. And he's
Okay.
worked for you in the past. He did some work up around Alvarado.
Okay. Yeah, so we keep looking, and that we know that's one of the biggest challenges is make it so that the smaller operators can actually afford it. If they're going to make some money out of going in, that's a big part of it, and we recognize that. Otherwise, we don't have that tool. We got to have that tool to check. So let me transition to something else, and it certainly fits with some of what I heard earlier. The county, part of your jobs is to market the county or market reasons why people should come here. Dark skies or clean air or clean water, magnificent landscapes and all those things. And we welcome that. But with that comes a realization that there are impacts, and there are human impacts. And we just had a discussion yesterday, kind of on a regional basis, all the forests in the 5-state region, about trying to develop some sort of strategy to deal with what is not just, it's been characterized as recreational impacts. There are those, uncontrolled motorized traffic or recreational shooting. But what we're seeing, and seeing it in dramatic fashions, are just the impacts of the increased volume of people. All those demographic projections that we all hear about are showing themselves on national forests. So whether it's homelessness, whether it's illegal dumping, whether it's hazardous waste dumping, abandoned vehicles, it's happening, and it's happening on this district. I've been here almost 20 years, and it didn't take me long to recognize that what we were seeing on the forests outside of Colorado Springs was probably going to reach us within 5-6 years, and that pattern has persisted, and so we're seeing all those things that come with human occupation or growing populations, whatever. And we're struggling with trying to figure out how do we deal with it? Because we don't get funding to dispose of abandoned vehicles, and we don't get funding to necessarily dispose of folks dumping their garage paint in the forest, and it's costing us some money. So I am going to be coming to you into the future to help us look at how we're going to manage the fact that we're asking people to come to the national forest because they bring that impact. And we believe that certainly the county's interest and ours are the same. We want to open up these wonderful areas to the public. Come enjoy them, come experience them. But there is an effect and a responsibility that comes with that. And the Forest Service itself cannot manage all those effects. And in one area in particular, South Colony Basin, we are there. And have been there for quite some time. We are seeing all those things, human waste, trash, degradation of very sensitive vegetation communities, impacts on wildlife. All those things are happening, and we are struggling to figure out how do we begin to get a handle on this. So we're going to be coming to you with some thoughts and ideas, hopefully requests for support to implement some things to begin to manage. And we think there are some opportunities for the county as well. If you haven't been in the South Colony Basin, I'd love to take you in and show you personally what I'm talking about. But one of the things that exists in that basin now is there's a lower parking lot on the bottom of that mountain. And people stop at that parking lot.
That is on private
and
ground.
it's on private ground or county. I'm not sure.
No, I assure you it's private.
Okay. So people go there and they park there and they start their ascent into that basin, which has 5 14,000-foot peaks, and that's where they stay. Others are able to travel up that road a little further, and they park at the end of the road where we gated it, and they start their trek from there. Both of those areas are seeing a lot of effect. We do not publicize, we do not encourage that they use the private land, but in climbing booklets and websites, it talks about that site. And, we brainstormed, if it was county, I bet you could make some money on that.
Well, the problem we've got right now is that the landowner who owns it, that's kind of fenced out. But he's getting a lot of trash that blows out of that parking area onto his private ground, and that's not good.
Yep. Yep.
And we got to address that too. If we increase the use down there, we're going to have to figure out some way to, maybe it's a partnership, maybe we put trash there and you guys pick it up and get rid of it.
So, we're open to any idea, but we're moving towards a time when for certain areas, it's going to be different. It's going to be different in that we're either going to have to put some regulations, and I hate the term regulation, but that's the best way to describe it, that begins to address what we're seeing, whether it's a limit on people that can be in there, whether it's a limit where you can stop and camp, whether it's a limit on where you can, do certain things. But all of that is showing itself in South Colony Basin in horrible ways. I mean, we've got water quality issues that are very serious. I would never recommend that you're taking water from that creek for your personal consumption. I wouldn't. I mean, it is bad, and we've done monitoring, we've done water monitoring, and because now we know it, we've got some potential liability if we do nothing. So again, I'd love to spend some time with you to be able to give you more details on what that is, where we might be going, hopefully get some support, give you something to answer your constituents with when they start calling you and start asking, why is the Forest Service doing this? And I extend that invitation this summer to get up there and show you and take you in to see where we might be going.
Please take this as I mean it, as a light jest, not a sharp point.
Sure.
The Forest Service is very closely regulated livestock grazing on public lands.
Yes.
We monitor it very close. We're very sensitive to the environment. You have totally overused what I like to call people unit days in South Colony.
Yeah.
And we have damn near destroyed that basin.
We have exceeded our stocking level.
That's exactly where I'm going. You're way overstocked and you keep on adding to it.
Believe me,
and I think, this is as a private citizen, but I think we really need to sit down as soon as we can and consider some of that. Another area that I'm interested in, and you've already done some of it, maybe you don't want to do it, but I have an interest in monitoring the E. coli in that creek through a season. I think I can find
and that's what we've
something to
done.
help
When I
do
talk
it.
about our monitoring, we've
But I'm
monitored.
looking at it from a public health standpoint, not from you guys as Forest Service, because that creek does go on down the hill. It does go on down to the weeds.
Oh yeah.
And I'm curious as to the E. coli and the fecal coliforms that we're getting in that creek. I think we need to look at it.
You should be concerned. We've monitored enough to know that we shouldn't be drinking that. So we've done some things. Again, we tell people use the backcountry techniques of waste disposal. Cat holes, dig a cat hole. We also have been encouraging folks to use wag bags. Wag bag, simply is you bring your human waste out with you. And we've been providing those on a voluntary basis at the trailhead. You take it, but we've been concerned because we don't have a place for them to deposit on the way out. We've been fortunate that we're not finding it in the woods. So I think folks are taking them home. Maybe they're taking it down to Westcliff and dumping it, or Wetmore and dumping it, but they're not leaving them on the forest or they're burying them.
Another concern is, I think we're probably getting almost too late in the season to address it, but I haven't talked to my colleagues about this, but I think we would be very amenable to putting some kind of a gate at that lower parking lot. Because I think we get a lot of damage on that road when it's too wet to be on it. And again, that's another means of conserving a resource, but also limiting some of the people usage, if they have to go a little farther to get in there, it isn't quite as convenient. And that's something that, by the time we get around to this year, we're probably going to be past the runoff. But that's something that I would be interested in discussing in the
Well,
future.
I would appreciate any opportunity to know that you're headed that way, but I could sure understand it. That's why we put.
The only reason we're headed that way is because of you.
Yeah.
I mean, the resources.
Okay.
And I don't say we, that's why I'm concerned.
Yeah. So I won't get into more detail, but except to say, we'd like to have more discussion with you. We don't have a plan right now. We don't have anything in place that says this is what we're gonna do. I'm really looking for your thoughts. I'm looking for, hopefully, agreement that there's something that we gotta do. In other words, we can't ignore what's been going on. And as you say, the fact that we've overstocked that allotment with people, and just continue to let it go uncontrolled. So I'll be coming back to you.
Well, we didn't take offense, but that's how I look at it.
Oh, no offense taken. I can almost agree with you.
Oh, may I just interject something?
Yes, ma'am.
I sit on the tourism board, and it's my understanding that the ATV map with trails is being redone as we speak.
Yes.
And that they're working with the sheriff's department and hoping that they're working with you also. But to my knowledge, they are highlighting certain trails. I mean, the whole county's on the map, but just highlighting certain trails more than others. So if you're not aware of that, Jeff, I'm going to ask that you get involved with this.
We've had early involved since early on.
Okay.
Yeah, and we do have our versions of the trails maps. We call it our emblem map, motorized vehicle use maps, and those are updated almost yearly, I guess. And they tell the public all the roads and trails where you can have a motorized piece of equipment. That's all it does.
I would like, if possible, and maybe you already have this, but I would like some type of rating on the Rainbow Trail. In other words, from Hermit to North Colony is rated a 1. That's an easy run. I mean, kind of like your rated ski run. So we don't get people that get on there and get onto a part of the trail that's way over their skill level and get hurt, and we have to send search and rescue and drag them out.
Yeah, we haven't done that, but certainly we've had that recommendation. We've also have looked at developing just standalone pamphlets that will give you a pamphlet just for the rainbow and give you kind of a section by section description of what to expect.
That's exactly what we're looking. I think, I don't know if we've had many of these happening, but I could see where it could sure be a problem.
Yeah.
But getting in there and then get on a narrow trail and pretty soon you turn the damn thing
No,
over.
we are behind in some of that. There are some districts, some areas that are doing that. We haven't. The one thing we are doing is this map behind you here, the forest recreational use map, is being updated. So we expect here in the next few months, John, to have that kind of final. And this thing hasn't been updated in, I don't know, 20 years or so. So it really is intended to reflect the most current information on national forests. So it's gonna have the roads, trails, trailheads, all those things that folks generally want to know. And it's one that you can pick up at all Forest Service offices, and we can even, have them.
Maybe just real quick on the
Yes.
trails. We have a group in Custer who's working on trails. One of those government grants that you don't get anything but support out of it, no monies, but we are identifying our trail systems, and the Office of Economic Development and Foreign Trade has made some support available to us. So maybe John or whoever, we can get these pulled together so we can end up with a complete document.
Good.
Maybe I'll have Charles get a hold of. Who works on it? Would that be you or you?
I came to the public meeting that Charles hosted, and so you could remind him to get back with me again. That's perfect.
Good.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that's another place that your maps could be put in is the Chamber of Commerce, because it's a visitor center.
You bet.
And Economic Development also has their office there, so.
And the emblem map that I referred to is a map that is free. I don't know if that's something.
They have him.
The other one, this map here is actually one that there is a charge for it. I think it's $10 now. But there is a way for Chamber of Commerce to buy 100 of them, and then you sell them at $11. I don't, it doesn't matter to us. It's your property once you acquire those. Yeah. So I want to mention one other thing, kind of in the vein of the times that we're in and the challenges that we have, and I'd say challenges collectively. And I maybe as part of this whole issue of the demographics of changes that we're going through now, but one of the more concerning changes that I've seen, or effects that I've seen on the National Forest in my time here, is the fact that folks, well, a particular group of folks have decided that it's worth the risk to be able to grow illegal marijuana on national forest. And we have, probably the last 5-6 years, we have found 7 plantations on the national forest. Last
On
year,
the San Carlos district?
yes, just on the San Carlos. Last year we found 3, 2 of which were in your county. And when I say it's a class of people, these are cartel grows. They're not, the local knucklehead down here who decided that he can go out and sell it to the dispensaries. These are cartel operations. We know that. We've made arrests. Law enforcement is tracking it back, and it's tied to cartel organizations. And it scares me to no end, because where we're finding them is not way back 20 miles in the wilderness. It's along public routes. It's near campgrounds, and they have become very brazen and confident in what they're doing. And as you would imagine, with anything that's illegal, they're going to protect to a certain degree. We're finding weapons in these plantations, and I only say this because we're going to continue to work with Sheriff Byerly. He helped us. I was a part of the 2 that we found in the county, one off of Highway 96, one up here in Adobe Peak, and the other law enforcement agencies. But it's one of those things that I don't know what to say except just to raise awareness. We think we're improving our abilities to find them, but we're surprised sometimes of where we do find them.
How do we impact the decision to only have one law enforcement officer in the Forest Service for the whole damn region? I mean, we have serious problems up here in terms of safety.
Sure.
And just like your people, they're not armed to go up there and walk in on one of these hot spots, but it is a very real public risk. Forest Service in DC, where do we start to say we have to have more law enforcement?
Well, again, I'm never going to ask you to write a letter on my behalf, but certainly you do whatever you feel you need to do. We have improved our presence with true law enforcement in this area. Besides Aaron, who is duty stationed in Canyon, we now have a law enforcement officer in Salida and one in Leadville. That's still too few, but it's 3 times as many as we had a year ago. And they will continue to work with all their partners, counties and states and other federal agencies, to pull together when it's needed. But it is. So we also have folks like Jeff and John who are what we call forest protection officers. They're deputized, but only to write the less risky sorts of incidents. We never are going to ask them to go in and confront serious sorts of violations. And it is, it's happening. I don't know if you folks are seeing it. It certainly came out yesterday in our discussions. I see it. And I never, I try not to stereotype, but one trend that we're seeing is just disregard by folks that are coming to the National Forest, almost disrespect. And it's scary. We're getting our campground hosts assaulted when a campground host inquires about paying a fee. So it's, you could attribute to a whole lot of things, I'm sure, maybe the whole effects aside, but that's happening. I have no doubt 20 years ago we probably had assaults with people that were coming, but it seems to be a recurring pattern now. So I don't want to end on a bad note, so I'm going to end on a good one. That is that a year ago we updated our Schedule A agreement with the county. And Schedule A is that agreement with the county that allows you to claim the roads that we agree on, that you'll maintain on our behalf. You're able to use those roads as part of what you get under your iced tea tax. So it helps you. So you add all those miles on there and you get more iced tea funding. And that agreement had expired, and we had kind of gone away from it. And the county put a lot of time into it a year ago with these guys to make it current, to make it fit with what you thought you could do and what we wanted done, and we really appreciate that. So we're trying to schedule a meeting right now with your road and bridge folks or whomever to go over that agreement for this year. Usually try to have an annual agreement. And I'll tell you, I've got 5 counties that I work with, and by far Custer is the county that is most responsive and certainly does the better job in trying to make sure that we're honoring what we say we're going to do with these agreements. And I really appreciate it. I know it starts with you folks, and it's not a small thing for us, so I want to thank you for that. And that's all I have that I wanted to give you on this. Jeff has anything that I missed there that is important for you to know?
I've got a couple of them.
Okay.
How about the gravel pit?
I knew that was going to happen.
We had this conversation.
Sorry, John.
Even though
What we're talking about, folks, is a gravel pit over on top of Over Divide over here up by Greenhorn Mountain that would facilitate the maintenance of some of those roads, and we've talked about in the past, and there's a lot of steps that have to be gone through, and I'm just...
Yeah, no, so this is something, and I'll apologize because this has come to us from the county for some years now. We made some progress in that our forest engineers are supporting it. They see a value to having a source of material. We first want to make sure that we've got a good source before we kind of set up and start making gravel. But we'll continue to commit to try to develop that gravel pit. Now, the idea is that the gravel would be used on forest roads or roads leading to the forest. We're not agreeing that you can get gravel and haul it to the north end of the county and use it where there is no national forest. It's got to be where it's of benefit to forest roads. And if you can agree with that, we're willing to work to try to develop that possibility.
First of all, it wouldn't, economically, we couldn't afford to haul it.
Yeah, sure. So maybe that's
Secondly, I
another
think their intent is using that area. That's why we want the pit, so we can avoid having to haul gravel long distances to maintain those roads.
Yep. No, that's certainly, it benefits us.
We did have the forest geologists go out and look at the sources. And, each one had a different opportunity, so to speak. But we had made that happen, and we're also, as Paul said, the forest engineers are interested in helping us move forward on that. So we just need, it might be a good opportunity during the Schedule A meeting to, when that person's in the room also, so we can...
Maybe we need to have a barbecue up there so he can come out and join us for a barbecue and look while he's there.
Well, I'm not sure of that. That does sound better than getting the hammer out and breaking rock.
Rusty, get anything to add on that gravel pit up there? Rusty Christensen was our road boss for a number of years and still works with us on roads.
Be a great idea for Forest Service and the county to have a gravel pit right up there.
So I just remember something else I just want to mention because I just heard about this 2 weeks ago. So I mentioned the Schedule A agreement. It's one of many that we have with the county. Another agreement that we have is with Sheriff Byerly, and it's a law enforcement cooperative agreement where we provide funds directly to the sheriff in exchange for agreement to patrol some of our campgrounds. And we're gonna continue to do that. I haven't heard yet how much we're gonna be able to offer to the sheriff this year, but that ability to funnel funds back to the county sheriff is something that appears to to be able to continue.
Yeah, we've done that for long.
Yep, we've done that, and you know, we agree with the sheriff what he would do with it. So, but you know, he puts it wherever he needs it. And
But our focus is the Alvarado type campgrounds.
yeah, we'll identify the locations where we would want to have him, you know, send a patrol through on Saturday evenings or whenever there's high use, or to respond when the campground host has a need and our law enforcement guy is sitting over in Pueblo or a canyon and the sheriff can be there in 5 minutes as opposed to an hour. So things like that. So appreciate your time, really do. And my offer to take you out to the woods is open. Please let me know if you're interested in that. And I'll show you some things in a more intimate fashion.
Another question I have, I looked at the bear report on the Hayden Pass fire.
Yes.
And it appears to have more complete, more options, more suggestions than the one we had on the Junkins fire. Can we get some additional input on that bear report? Is it too late?
No.
If we could
It's
expand
not
it
too
some
late.
more.
I mean, I'd want to know what, obviously, what is it that you want and what improvement might it make?
Well, it seemed like there was, I'm trying to remember, but it seemed like there was some suggestions of things that might be done adjacent to the forest. And it seems like the one we had just stops at the forest boundary. And I think we can maybe benefit for some interaction.
Yeah.
Cindy may be getting with you on that.
Well,
to see.
maybe the clarification is, and maybe, I know I raised this point when we met in Pueblo, that large group. The report that the state was giving showed some project proposals outside the forest boundary. And those were projects that the forest bear report did not identify. The state bear review identified them. We're limited by law as to where those funds can be spent, and we cannot spend them outside the forest boundary. Now we're certainly willing to share everything we have, and we have already on this one, the information, the work that the specialists did that might affect private lands, but we are not allowed to expend funding on private lands. That's where the state comes in.
Right. Now, another one that I have, we're moving forward, but I don't know exactly where, and I think I've talked with you about this. The Army Corps of Engineers has identified a research project that they want to conduct up here on the fire burn. They think it's somewhat unique in a late season fire, and they're pulling some resources and stuff together. And I don't know if it'd even be possible, but maybe they identify some things higher on the forest for a monitoring station. Mm-hmm. Is there some way, if it was needed, that we could get some temporary access into some of that for, you know, on a restricted basis? They can get in, so they can get in and make the readings and stuff.
Yes. No. I met with them when they were here from Mississippi. That whole group came up from Mississippi, and I met with them when we were in Pueblo. And I asked them, do you know where you're going to want these? And they did not.
They don't know.
So they thought that by around mid-April, and we haven't heard from them, that they would know where they're going to want to put them and how many and what they're going to do. They've described them well enough that we're not concerned about what they're going to put in place, and we're ready to help them not only put them in place, but be able to have access to go in and monitor or do whatever they got to do. Yeah, so we're waiting for them to come to us to say we're ready.
The other thing that we ran into last week at the meeting was that on the Hayden Pass fire, they've done a lot, and they're looking at a lot of data collection they can do via cell phone or whatever. Mm-hmm. Well, that coverage doesn't exist in South Harscrabble.
Right.
So we're going to have to figure out, they're going to have to figure out another type of being able to remotely collect that data. And if that did involve a temporary relay or something someplace we could probably accommodate.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a repeater station and it's temporary in nature and, you know, we're ready to do it. We expect, and this is, I think I was telling John that, I was telling Jamie last night that I've got to get out and talk to Bill Donnelly, maybe already, because we're going to continue to get all this attention, whether it's researchers or people that are curious that want to go in and fly their drone around just to see what's happening. Or whatever it might be. We're going to continue to get these for a while, and we're trying to be careful. I don't want to just start giving everybody the okay to get behind the gate, and you know, we'll accommodate what we think we can and what is safe and what's reasonable. I have turned away a request earlier this week where folks wanted to go in there and just fly a drone around just for the sake of seeing what the fire looked like. Under some kind of a regular basis that had no tie to kind of value to research.
And then the last two little quick ones. I saw, I think last night, maybe you saw it from the Weather Service. I think they've identified 3/10 of an inch of rain on a fire as a trigger point for flood alerts.
Oh, okay.
Did you,
I didn't get to read it.
did you see that? It was in one of the emails that I got, and it just came out, I think, yesterday. But to me, that maybe is a reasonable threshold level. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
and this was from Tom.
I know the individual you're talking about.
Okay, the other one that I had is that we are looking at this chain of crystal projects that starts at Horn Creek basically and goes all the way along the Front Range, the 500,000 project that Robin was working on and that Cindy's working on, and it's on private land for mitigation. And we need to, I think we need to sit down and do some thinking and some looking so that we're tying in on some of these. I know you thought about how far you are on the Rainbow Trail, is trying to make that some kind of a...
Were they doing it for the sake of fire mitigation?
This is fire mitigation on
I hadn't
private
heard
land.
about that.
all along
Jeff
it.
had told me,
But
I'd
it's-
forgotten about it.
Yeah, the NRCS is tied heavily into it currently with
Oh,
some of
okay,
their...
from all that stuff going on, yeah.
But
yeah.
I
thought
thought you
meant
make sure
further
we're
south.
bringing as much as we can, that we're on the same page.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, we started working around El Dorado years and years ago with the hope that the surrounding public landowners would be motivated to do the same thing. So those folks down there that are now doing that, certainly, we've met with them, we've met with NRCS, we're trying to see what we can do to make it easier for them to work across boundaries.
We need to move along.
Yeah,
I'll let you
okay.
ask a question, but real quick, my thoughts are on the Schedule A roads. I would like us to try to maintain them, try to get the first maintenance done prior to Memorial Day, and then to get a second maintenance done prior to Labor Day.
We would love that.
Well, I'm thinking in terms of use and so forth, that would...
Oh, yeah.
That kind of makes sense then for you.
Yep, no, we would love that. Certainly, you know, folks that are gonna pull their campers up to whatever campground would prefer not to drive on a washboard road, but.
I turned over my colleagues. I'm sorry I took so much folks that I worked close on this.
No problem. Paul, I would like to get a tour of that area.
Okay. If I can set that up this summer, extend an invitation to all three of you, great, I will do that.
Now, do you anticipate a mechanical failure once you get up there?
Always.
Because there's some fairly decent exercise.
Yeah, I know. These kinds of things. No, I look forward to that.
Commissioner, any
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Paul, we appreciate our relationship with the Forest
Same here.
Service, especially John and Jim and Dennis. You guys have been really superstars. The performance of these folks, in just a second, Paul, I got a question. The performance that some of these Forest Service folks did during that Junkins fire was just kind of incredible. The first 36 hours that it was on, and we so appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
After listening to your presentation, one question I have is, can you please close Smith Creek Campground?
Well, it's not a campground. I know people call it a campground. It's a pull-off area. What's your reason? I can guess, but
Well,
why
I
do you want us
live
to close
half a
it?
mile from it. We had a fire call this weekend, a campfire that was in full blaze and being seen from the road, and Wetmore Fire Department was dispatched out there. If we're gonna have a fire in Wetmore, that's where it's gonna start.
Could be. We are not under fire restrictions. Now, I know folks get real nervous. We try to be very prudent about when we go into restrictions, but it's okay to have a campfire in Smith Creek. And it's a popular area. I understand folks that live near there get concerned when there are campfires, but it's okay to have a campfire on the national forest in an undeveloped campground where there are no restrictions. Now, if we go into restrictions, stage one does limit or would restrict dispersed camping fire. You can only have one in a campground in Alvarado or San Isabel. But we're not under any restrictions right now. We will we assess those weekly, and we may go into restrictions if conditions change, but right now, there is no restriction to having that. So, yes, sir.
Well, a couple quick things. First off, who has the authority to restrict it? I mean, why don't we find that person and ask him to restrict it?
On national forest?
Yeah.
The forest supervisor is the authority that, that would limit where you can put fire restriction in place. We look at measurable criteria to determine when we go into restrictions and when we come out. So we look at several factors, including the fuel moistures we were talking about. The Commissioner was asking us how long does it take for the tree to suck up the moisture so that it actually can repel heat. We look at the forecast. We look at the availability of fire resources. We look at the occurrence of human-started fires. In other words, is there a trend? Are we getting a lot of human starts? We look at several things that are measurable. They're not subjective. We can say, yep, it's happening, or no, it's not happening. And if we get a certain number of those criteria, 3 triggers that we check yes, then we are likely going to go into restriction. And unless we're getting those sorts of criteria being met, it becomes a subjective thing, and it becomes very difficult to manage how we go into it and how we come out. We don't want to confuse the public about are we in restrictions or are we not, by going in and then coming out, and going in and coming out. So we're trying to be very careful. And I'm not trying to lessen your concern, believe me. I'm not.
Well, this is not you said it's a turnout. It's not a turnout. It's like a maze back in there. Mm-hmm. You can get back in there a half a mile, and people pull in there with their girlfriends, and they just hunker down. They just light fires. They don't know or care anything about plant moisture or anything else, but they do understand yes or no. Why don't somebody just call the supervisor, tell him to shut it down, or tell him to put a no fires in there and put up a sign?
Well, again,
forever.
When we have a restriction, it isn't a restriction for a location. It's a restriction forest-wide. So, and again, to try to minimize confusion about are we in restrictions or not, when we go into restrictions, it's for the entire national forest. And it makes it more difficult to say we're in restrictions at Smith Creek, but nowhere else. And we look at that area with the same kind of objective-minded criteria as we would wherever else. So again, we're at this time of the year, we're looking and talking restrictions every week. And we say, where are our indicators? Are they there such that we need to consider it? And if we decide we're going to go, it happens pretty quickly. And we go in it and then we go into enforcing it. But we also work closely with the county. We want to, we have no authority on private land. It's all with the sheriff. But we try to coordinate and hopefully go into them and come out of them together. That doesn't always work, and that's fine. We acknowledge reasons why the county sheriff feels like we have to. But it is something that is not an easy thing. Every year we have discussions and concerns. If you want to call it a good thing, one of the good things of Smith Creek, it's really easy for any one of us to pop in there and check. And our law enforcement officers all know about Smith Creek. It's a popular area, whether you're in there building a campground or a campfire or just back there, taking a rest. So people go in, we can go in there real quick, and I do. Every time I go up to Canyon, when I have a few minutes, I'll whip in there, go through, and then go on my way. But I understand that concern.
And something we try to do as commissioners is to visit with these folks. Last year when we had the Junkins fire, we declared a fire restriction stage 2 on a very quick basis. But we did make a quick call. We didn't have time to sit down and work out all the details, but we did make a quick call to the Forest Service so that they knew what we were doing. This year, we felt we really had a high higher fire risk, especially with this cheatgrass and stuff down here. We couldn't do it up on the hill, that was forest, but down here on the private. So that's why we initiated the restrictions when we did. And then after we got some moisture, we lifted them. Now, nothing says we're not going to go back in, but our sheriff is a part of this phone call, 1 o'clock Wednesday afternoon or something, I forget the time, but every week either the sheriff or the undersheriff is a part of that phone call, listening to all the other sheriffs and and the Forest Service and BLM folks collectively to get a feel for what the fire danger is.
All right, well, this last weekend, we had a guy down at the big old bonfire. And we went down there and told him to back it off, make it smaller, blah, blah, blah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, our homes are right there. Maybe
Sure,
they should be part of the criteria too that you consider as what, you know.
I guess the question you really want to ask, you want to ask, who can take part of that forest and say it is now closed, period?
Yeah.
They would like that campground closed, period.
You mean you can't drive in there?
Yeah,
Right. Close it.
who can do that?
So what would be the reason for that?
Just exactly what we're talking about.
Keep people
fires.
out.
Exactly.
So you're talking about closing it so no one could ever go in there?
That's right. That's the question they're asking.
The reason it was originally there was there was some water pipe or something back in there. In the old days, people would stop putting water in their radiator before they started climbing up the hill. Now you just get a bunch of yahoos back in there. They're not. They're of no benefit to the county. They pay no fees. They spend no money. They're just troublemakers.
Can I recommend this? Certainly, this is your meeting. I'm willing to talk about it and understand this a little better, give you a sense for that potential, but I don't want to take up the board's time.
I like to encourage you to discuss together and see, but there's, this is part of forest management, multiple use. And we get down to multiple use, where do we draw the line? And where do the pressures come from? I can appreciate what you're saying. At the same time, though, we used to have a spring on Smith Creek, which is right on the road, and that's where everybody used to get water, so they used to water their teams. But then that area was developed up the creek a little ways as parking areas and stuff, but picnic area, I guess. Well, if we can, would you mind, we're gonna take a quick 5-minute
I want
break.
to go
if that
outside
would-
and have a
to
discussion.
give you a chance to make contact. Does that work, folks? Come on, declare for a 5-minute recess, please.
We'll work on it. It's a work in progress.
Isn't it always? A work in progress.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting back to order and out of recess. The next item on the agenda, and we're reconvening at 10:15. Next item on the agenda are the human resource updates.
Okay. 11:15. As I
What did I say,
mentioned,
Tim? I'm sorry.
okay. As I mentioned before, Dawn and I have spent many hours in the past 2 weeks reviewing our policy manual, job descriptions. But what happened was on the 4th of April, we had a huge snowstorm. And what we didn't have in place was notification to employees on closing the facility, the courthouse. So Donna did some digging, and actually in 2015, Kit created a policy, but it was never approved. So we looked at that, we modified it. I sent it to the commissioners. Clint, I'm not sure if you were on that list or not, but anyway, we're going to try to incorporate that in the policy manual. Certainly not just for snow days, but also for any kind of emergency or an evacuation of that building. So we'll look more at that on this Thursday. But just to give you an update, nothing was in place, and I know some people got left out and some people actually showed up, and we can't put blame on anybody, but going forward, we're going to have this policy in place for closure of the courthouse.
Question. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, you emailed, or I think Donna emailed personnel policies. It's fairly long. I haven't gone through the entire thing, but I'm still working on it. Is that,
That's for
it just kind of
discussion.
showed up.
Okay, that's
that
for
just a discussion item?
Yes, discussion item
Okay.
for the work session.
Gotcha.
With CTSI.
Gotcha.
So that's what we've been working on. We wanted to give you that in advance, so we're going to go through it page by page.
Thank you.
Anything else? Questions, anybody? What we're trying to do is to update and clarify some of our policies. As an example, with this emergency procedures for closing the courthouse, that was actually the document that I've been looking at. I think it's fairly inclusive. It was actually written by Kit 3 or 4 years ago. It was never officially adopted and brought into the process. So trying to clarify what we're doing and how we're doing it is all. Okay, the next I have, as there's nothing else on human resources, is the Wetmore Community Center open house discussion.
May I take the lead on that?
Cool.
Okay. I actually met with some of the folks at our last contract meeting, and in lieu of the fact that we have had delays in the completion of that building, we looked at...
Please.
Excuse me? Oh. Okay.
Sorry.
We want to give the folks that are operating that facility enough time to get the library and the downstairs community part in order. So we came up with a date, June 21, to have our grand opening. That's when we have our June meeting in Wetmore in the morning. So I have asked Nan to head up the invitation list, and we're going to work with Brenda. So Brenda, you and I are going to work with the invitation list. You had mentioned honoring Mr. Naylor at that point in time, so we want to make sure if we start now on the list and get it out, I'd like to get it out a month in advance, so all of us will look at the list to make sure that we did not leave anyone out. But June 21st will be a grand opening of the Wetmore Community.
Where are we with the downstairs bathroom?
I can answer that. You're talking about the handicap bathroom? Yeah, the handicap bathroom is, I was there Friday. The fixtures were not in that bathroom, they were in the other bathrooms. They were still finishing it up. It was drywalled, it's been plumbed. I mean, it's ready to go. I mean, probably by this afternoon they'll have the plumbing in and it'll be ready to go. So it's looking very, very good down there.
We actually, there's a commissionings meeting scheduled, Bob, for April 26th.
Right.
Jay is going to be down there. That's a time when the mechanical room is going to be reviewed. And Jay is going to take a video of that because since we don't have a maintenance person yet for our buildings, that would be a duty that person would be responsible for, so.
Right. I spoke to them after that. I'm going to take a video of it because they can explain how it all operates and maintenance, that kind of thing. But I also spoke to them in terms of, since I'm not going to be the one doing the maintenance, when we have the right person, they'll be happy to either come back out or meet with them to make sure that we maintain the facility the way it needs to be maintained so we don't lose.
Maybe we should start to look for somebody now.
It's on my list.
We're working on it.
Well, I mean,
It's true.
get them here when we're ready to go.
Yep.
Can I just throw one thing in? I don't mean to step on this, but I just want to remind everybody, the next Wetmore meeting is going to be on May 17th, which is Wednesday. And I'd just like to tell you again, thank you for approving the move from a Tuesday to a Wednesday, the personal accommodation. I really appreciate that. But I just want to remind you that starting in May, it'll be on Wednesday morning, not the third Wednesday, not Tuesday. And we're going to have it in our new building.
One thing we need to be aware of on those is that I believe on the 17th, we also have an E911 meeting, so we need to get done by noon or so we can't. Otherwise we're going to be conflicting with other exciting meetings.
No problem.
Bob, your June 21st meeting too is San Isabel.
It's scheduled for San Isabel. So we may just have to switch that.
We'll switch it.
Or we can still
Yeah,
have
and-
it there and then come over.
And
So-
I have not, San Isabel is not open yet to the season, so I have not contacted them yet, so that's.
We'll work on that conflict.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, we could still have the open house in the morning in San Isabel. Okay.
Oh, excuse me, I got lost. We're going to be down here on the 17th.
Of May.
But you said we're scheduled in San Isabel?
June.
In June.
June,
Oh, in June.
on the
It's the open
21st.
And we need to coordinate these a little more. Well, let's see what happens. And we just picked that, any particular reason on the 21st?
Well, in speaking with the folks of Wetmore, everything would be done in that building at that point.
And what time are you thinking?
That's up for discussion, but since we have a morning meeting, it would be in the afternoon. That would give any dignitaries time to travel
And,
to this location.
and just to let you know, usually when we have San Isabel meetings, they start at noon. So it would be, probably be better to move that meeting to here in the morning and then, so we'll work on that.
Okay.
Well,
enough
yeah,
time
the other
for
thing is when we go to San Isabel, that's something we've done, that's something that they anticipate. We do buy some meals over there and stuff.
Yeah, usually 2 times a year.
Yeah.
This year.
But
Yeah.
those are, you know, as a,
Yeah, it's an option to change the time.
well, we can talk about
Yeah.
that. I'm just,
They have good burritos.
Excellent
They
discussion.
do, we all look forward to that.
okay, what else?
That's it on the open house.
Any folks want to talk about the building at all? Do you have anything you want to bring up?
That's the last item there. Building assessment.
No, that's something different.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
phone lines. I'm just wondering if you have anything you want to talk about with the building that we
I don't think so. I
have neglected or haven't done?
Do you want to talk about the telephone lines since we're already talking about that?
No, it's on the
That's on the
agenda.
agenda.
Well, I'd like-
I was just-
Excuse me, but we have some things to talk about. All of us aren't there when you guys talk about it there. I mean, either Jay gives us an update or we talk about it, so we know where we are. If you want to do an update thing later, that's fine, Jay, but if there's anything that's,
I was wondering if the folks from Wetmore had anything that they wanted to ask
And-
us at the meeting, that's all.
and you're comfortable. Bingo. Okay. I'm gonna change the order just a second, Donna. We had added the telephone lines in the building as a discussion point, and I would like to, if we can, discuss that now.
Sure.
Before also the building.
Okay. I received a phone call from Justin Bonham, who's the vice president of Whitlock that we've been working with. And he informed me that we're now up to 7 telephone lines for that building. 2 have been there originally. One was a voice, one was a voice and data. I contacted the sheriff last week, and for his office, he's saying he needs a designated line. We just found out yesterday that the security system has to have 2 lines, 2 dedicated lines. One is a backup, but they're saying that's necessary. The elevator needs its own line. I'm asking, I passed out a map here. Right across from the sheriff's building is supposed to be the commissioner's room. And I just want to verify, are we still going to utilize that as a commissioner's room? And did you want a line there?
Well, I've been told that that's really not the commissioner's room, that's the coffee room.
No?
No, that's
I
this
think it
room
was
right here.
designated as a county room, which, so I thought like Tim Schwartz would meet
So
there.
it would still be a county room then.
For whatever the
Okay,
county.
that was what I was told the other day, that
Front room, yeah.
No, it's,
if we do that, I don't think, if we put in a line, the sheriff's office has to be a dedicated line. But why couldn't that be sheriff and the commissioners?
Like a
room?
county.
county.
It's not commissioners, county.
Yeah, county. I'm just putting, I think, well, he requested his own, I guess, because of various things.
If he wants his own, then pay for it. What are those, we got about 7 lines?
7 lines.
What's that gonna cost us on a monthly basis?
Well, I just found this out last night, so I've got to go back now and modify the order for CenturyLink. The security system lines and the elevator line, since you're not going to be using those for long distance or outside calls, they are reduced to about half of what you would normally do. It's about $19 a month for each of those lines compared to another.
Yeah, those two would be at night, at most would be 20, that would be $40 a month.
Yep.
Okay.
For the security and the elevator is another.
Just a question on that, Donna. Last I thought the elevator had to have 2 lines. Is
No,
that-
it's all been straightened out. That's why I got the call from Justin last night.
Yeah, I
There
didn't
was
talk to
confusion.
Justin Sitz there. Okay.
There was confusion. He didn't recognize the security system needed 2 lines until yesterday. So that's why I got the call. To put these, the security system and the elevator line, each line for installation is another $54. That's a one-time cost.
Yes.
So, but I just want you to recognize that up until this point in time, the county has been paying the telephone bills as just part of like building and grounds. And now you've got 7 lines, so I just want to make you aware of that expense.
What do the other lines going to cost us? The other 5?
Well, the 2 that are in place have been ongoing. Until I placed this phone call, I wanted to have this meeting, I don't have an exact figure for you, other than what I said as a reduced lines. So
And give me an idea of what we've been paying.
they don't see the bills.
Well, and I just did the phone bill yesterday for Donna, and like a regular phone line with long distance and everything is about $50 to $55.
A month.
Yes.
But you cannot call long distance from the Wetmore Community Center in the past. So I mean, we had, the cheapest line, is what I'm saying.
Nobody could make a long
Nobody.
distance
But
call.
this, what she's talking about is what you currently have.
Right.
No.
Well, no, that's
Okay.
just an average
Oh, an average.
for a line that allows long distance.
So you'll have 2 lines for the community building, one on the library?
Well, someone said it
This
was.
already exists. The data line already exists, and the building line have what's been in place, okay? You're looking at a county office line, the sheriff's line, 2 security system lines, and an elevator line. So you're going from 2 to 7, 5 additional lines, 3 at a lower rate.
Would the county have to have a different line than just the building? The building is the coffee room. There was a phone in the coffee room, in the kitchen, and in the library. And none of it, you could not call long distance. So it was, someone said it was $19. So it was.
Yeah.
That's all the same number.
Yeah, all the same
Well-
number. I mean, I don't know if the county, that's not gonna be like a main office. I didn't know if the county could just be on that as well.
Up for discussion, that's why
Yeah.
I put it on the agenda, but if you're saying like the VSO, I don't know how he uses the telephone.
But he just takes care of the veterans in our county, so it wouldn't be.
No, ma'am, he
No, he
takes care of
doesn't.
Fremont and some other Pueblo,
And
and some
Pueblo,
other
okay.
Warfield, and some other Cherokee.
So that would be
Unfortunately.
long
Okay.
distance.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, that
It's
is,
unfortunate, yes. I mean, fortunate for the veterans.
right.
So are you saying to allocate the sheriff's line to the sheriff's department?
And they do pay their own phone. So.
So what will it cost us for the internet connections?
We haven't, that hasn't been addressed yet. That's why until we get this done, the jacks are in those offices are voice and data. So I have to get a price on all that.
But can't we make phone calls over a data line? Isn't that what Dale does?
It's tied to it.
It's, the way they wired it, because that was that additional $2,400 that we approved. All those jacks in that building that were designated voice and data have both 2 different wires per jack. One's voice, one's data.
I know, but if we have a line that's down, maybe that's just, I don't know, it works on a mobile phone, but if my landline is down, I can still make a phone call over my internet connection.
I don't know that yet, because I haven't addressed that with CenturyLink.
Well, Dale and Charles have talked about this a lot, and maybe we can look at that, but if we have a data line in there, maybe we can use that instead of having to have a separate phone line for our commissioner business and county office line in there.
Voice over IP usually.
Yes, ma'am, that's what I'm looking for.
Usually costs about $10 a month. It works just fine as long as your internet's working.
As long as the internet's working.
Well, but at the same time, we need to be realistic of, I mean,
Right, right. Yeah, that's why it's here. I don't know how that office was going to be used, so.
I'm not sure.
so what,
Well, I'm just saying,
I think we need to find out what those costs are and then,
okay, because I've got to order them, I've got to modify the order, so I'll make that call to CenturyLink this afternoon and get the costs and
because
I'll
I
send it.
think this is just my thought, you add to it. I think we need to leave your lines like they are. I mean, that's worked, you're comfortable with them. Let's not mess with that. We'll go on as we are. And then we need to say, okay, we have no choice for the security and the elevator.
Right.
Those have to be.
That's correct.
So now we're down to
It's the sheriff's office, how he
just
wants
the
that.
two lines, which is the sheriff's office and the
Right.
county office.
Okay. I'll get the info and I'll send it out.
And if that is a strictly sheriff's line, that can be charged to the sheriff's accounts. So,
Well, I don't know how we're gonna charge the internet. Is that just going to the building, or we try to break it down?
we've split costs for internet.
Allocated by department.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What action would you like?
I wanted to make you aware of this, and if we needed to take action, but I just got the call.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Custer County building assessments. I've received no communication, have you?
We received one from Christie. I just pulled it up here. She originally sent us information on March the 21st. And then, on Thursday, the 13th last week, she wanted to know if we've had a chance to look at what she sent to us and how to move forward, because Jeff, who was, I guess, the project lead on this, is trying to schedule interns for the summer. So they're looking for direction from us on how to move forward.
This is the,
I'd like to see us have them come down for a meeting with Jeff and see where we are and what's going to happen, but I don't know what your thoughts are, Jay.
I asked Brenda to put this on the agenda because I sat here and kind of scratched my head. An MOU, a memorandum of understanding with DOLA, University of Colorado, Denver, and Custer County, and our share is $2,400, and it's apparently agreed to prior to Don and I being on the
It was done way back last spring.
Yeah, and I read through this and I'm trying to decide, why is it coming up now? What is it about? Where is it going? What's it for?
The reason it's coming up now is two things. This is a DOLA project that is just stuck in the mud. And we need to finish up the project. We need to get a report. We need to see what they did with their time that they spent. These were some college students from University of Colorado, I think, wasn't it? Architect students?
University of Colorado.
Anyway, the whole thing's come out from Christie and I. We have to do something to start to wrap this up. Do we try to go on with it? Where are we going to go? We've not received any reports from them, from the committee. Is that a report?
That's a report
When did you get that?
on the 21st of March.
Yeah, I'm not going through this. We have to look here and see what they've got. I guess what we're going to need to do, I'm not prepared for this, that we need to think about. Well, my initial thought is that I don't see any reason to continue it. This was done a year ago. We've had very little communication. It's just kind of fallen by the wayside. I'm afraid when we're done, I'll look at the title, but I'm afraid when we're done, the data we're gonna find in there probably is not gonna be very useful, because they come down on a 2-day tour, walked through the buildings, made some assessments, and that was it.
And charged $2,400.
Yeah, we have a match to that.
It's $4,800 our share.
That we approved
Right,
a year ago.
right. But in order for them to get their fee, we need to say that the project is complete on our.
Right, and that's, I would like to, I would like to see him come down and maybe meet with us and say, okay, this is a report, this is what we've gone over. If we've got some questions, we ask him. You got some questions, they ask us, and at this point in time, I'm not sure, I mean, if we're gonna go with some interns, we wanna have some very definable deliverables.
Well, I went through this and they put recommendations and observations and conclusions, and you're right. I mean, these were students, and I don't know how valid this report is.
I read the report also. I was less than impressed, to be truthful with you. I would really think for our share of this commitment, we ought to have them in front of us so we can ask questions and let them explain it to us. The report, I mean, I could have come up with those recommendations and conclusions. I mean, it was, fix the courthouse. Okay.
We're not wondering to discuss it because we already did it.
That's not the point.
So-
The point is, before we
The point
pay
is,
them, we ought to
yes, is
have
that
them,
we already
excuse me,
did it.
before we ought to have them down here to talk to us and to give us their report, and then we can go ahead and pay for it.
Excuse me just a moment. I think we need to look at what we had in the project. Does this report include what they need? Let's see what was in the grant and the proposal, and then we can go from there, I think.
The scope of the project was listed in their MOU, Bob.
But did they meet what we had on our original agreement? Did they meet that scope?
And I can't answer that without having a discussion with Jeff, because this came via an email.
Okay, let's get him down for a meeting. If that's agreeable with you, we'll go through the report, and at that point in time, we make a decision.
That's exactly what I just said. We need them down here to tell us what's going on. I agree.
So I'll say Brenda will coordinate a meeting with them coming down at one of our meetings.
Now, if we have to do it outside of the meeting, because I think we've had problems getting Jeff and Christy together. Is that going to be okay?
Do it as a workshop. We need to.
A workshop, okay. Okay.
Okay, but I mean, I guess I have a concern with what I'm seeing just going around myself. So it's like, how do you prioritize their recommendations? Do you?
It's a piece of crap to start with.
Yeah. So.
Okay, anything else on the building assessment? Do we have any other business to come before the board at this time? Okay. Everybody done? All right. I declare the meeting adjourned, and thank you all for your patience and your